I should have seen it coming. Looking back, all the signs were there, flashing like neon lights. But when it's your own family, your own brother, you don't expect your life to turn into some kind of twisted soap opera. Matt and I were always close. Just a year apart, we grew up more like best friends than brothers. We did everything together: video games, backyard football, sneaking out to parties in high school. And when it was time for college, we even ended up at the same university, sharing an apartment. Life was simple, good. Then Matt met Kate. At first, I liked her. She was funny, smart, and had this effortless charm that made everyone around her feel comfortable. She and Matt hit it off quickly, and before long, she was always around hanging out in our apartment, joining us for meals, tagging along whenever we went out. It didn't bother me at first. If anything, I was happy for my brother. He seemed in love, and I wanted him to be happy. But then, things got weird. Kate was too friendly with me. At first, it was small stuff, little touches on my arm when she talked, laughing too hard at my jokes, calling me at odd hours just to chat. I figured she was just trying to bond with her future brother-in-law. But then, my girlfriends started noticing. "Your brother's fiancé hates me," one of them told me. At first, I laughed it off. "Come on, she's just protective of Matt." "No," she insisted. "She's not just protective of him, she's possessive of you." I shrugged it off, but the pattern continued. Every time I brought a girl around, Kate would make her feel uncomfortable. She'd make passive-aggressive comments, drop weirdly personal questions, or flat out ignore them. And it worked. My relationships never lasted long. Then there was Sarah. She was amazing, funny, kind, and someone I could really see a future with. But one day, out of nowhere, she broke up with me. No explanation. Just walked away. I was heartbroken, confused. Then, weeks later, I found out why. "Kate told me you were cheating on me," Sarah admitted when I confronted her. She said she was looking out for me. I was furious. Kate had deliberately destroyed my relationship, and when I confronted her, she didn't even deny it. Instead, she smiled and said, "She wasn't right for you. I was just protecting you." That was the moment I knew something was seriously wrong. I tried to keep my distance after that. I stopped engaging in one-on-one conversations with her. I was polite, but distant. I thought that would be enough, that she'd get the message, that everything would go back to normal. I was wrong. For my birthday, Kate gave me a gold chain. A nice gift, except for one detail: the pendant had the letter K on it. I remember staring at it, confused. Thanks, but I think you meant this for Matt." Her face turned red. "No," she said quickly. "It's for you. I wanted you to wear something that reminded you of me." That was it. The final straw. I went straight to Matt, told him everything: the way she treated my girlfriends, the way she lied to Sarah, the way she was acting way too close for comfort. I expected him to be shocked, maybe even a little angry. Instead, he brushed it off. "Kate loves you like family," he said. "You're overthinking it." Overthinking it? His fiancée had just given me jewelry with her initial on it. I wanted to shake him, make him see what was right in front of him. But he wouldn't listen. He was in love, blinded by it. So I backed off. I kept my distance, hoping that once they graduated and got married, I wouldn't have to deal with her much anymore, that she'd get bored and move on. But she didn't. Instead, she started calling me, texting me, every single day. At first, I ignored her. Then I started giving short, one-word responses, but she never got the hint. It got to the point where I had to block her number just to get some peace. And then I met Daisy. Daisy was different. She was confident, kind, and she didn't take crap from anyone, including Kate. From the moment they met, Kate tried her usual games: passive-aggressive comments, exclusion tactics, even flat-out bullying. But Daisy wasn't having it. At a family dinner, Kate deliberately picked a seafood restaurant, knowing Daisy was allergic to shellfish. When we found out, Daisy called her out in front of everyone. "You did this on purpose," she said. Kate feigned innocence. "I had no idea your allergy was that serious." Daisy didn't back down. "You've known for months." That was the first time my parents saw what I had been dealing with for years. And to my shock, they sided with me. Kate was furious, and that's when things spiraled completely out of control. I should have known it wouldn't end there, that she wouldn't just let me go. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. At Matt and Kate's engagement party, in front of our entire family, she grabbed the microphone, drunk out of her mind, and made a confession that changed everything. She told everyone she had been in love with me the whole time. She begged me to leave Daisy, to run away with her. Right there, in front of Matt, in front of everyone, The silence was deafening. Matt stood frozen, his face pale. My parents were speechless. And me? I wanted to disappear. Kate was dragged away by her sister, but the damage was done. That night, Matt called off the engagement. But instead of blaming Kate, he blamed me. And that was the moment I lost my brother, for years. And when he finally came back, he wasn't looking for forgiveness. He was looking for $50,000. When Matt's name flashed on my phone screen, I felt like I'd seen a ghost. 5 years. That's how long it had been since he last spoke to me. Since that night, Kate ripped our family apart, and he vanished like I was, the one who had ruined his life. I had tried to reach out so many times, had left messages he never returned, even showed up at our childhood home on holidays hoping he'd be there, but nothing. Silence. And now, out of nowhere, he was calling. I hesitated before answering, my heart pounding. Matt, my voice came out hoarse, uncertain. Hey, he said. His voice was different, older, colder. Been a while. I didn't know what to say. What do you say to someone who disappeared from your life without a word? Someone who had blamed you for something that wasn't your fault? Yeah, I said, exhaling. It has. There was a pause. Look, I'll get to the point, he said. I'm getting married. I blinked. That was the last thing I expected to hear. Wow, that's great, man. I meant it, even if the news caught me off guard. Congratulations. Thanks. Another pause. I want you and Daisy to come. I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this was it. Maybe after all these years, he wanted to fix things. Maybe this wedding was his way of building a bridge back to the family he had cut off. Of course, I said quickly. We'd love to. Good, Matt said. Then his tone shifted. But listen, there's something else. Here it comes, I thought. I need $50,000, he said. I almost laughed, thinking it was a joke. What? I need you to give me 50 grand, he repeated, as a way to make things right between us. My stomach dropped. Make things right? I echoed. Matt, what the hell are you talking about? He sighed, like he was the one who was frustrated. You owe me, man. You cost me everything. I gripped the phone tighter. I didn't cost you anything, Matt. Kate destroyed your relationship, not me. You could have stopped it, he shot back. You should have seen what she was doing sooner. You should have shut it down. If you had drawn the line, she wouldn't have humiliated me in front of everyone. She wouldn't have ruined my life. I was stunned. After all these years, he still blamed me. Matt, I tried, I said, my voice rising. I told you she was acting weird. I warned you. You ignored me. You didn't do enough, he snapped. You let it happen. And now, the only way we can move forward is if you help me out. Call it compensation for everything I lost. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This isn't about Kate, I said slowly, realization dawning. This is about money. You need cash for your wedding, and you're using this as an excuse. His silence told me I was right. Matt, I continued, if you're in trouble, if you need help, just say that. But don't twist this into some kind of debt I supposedly owe you. That's bullshit. His voice turned cold. So you won't do it? No, I said firmly. I won't. There was a long pause. Then, quietly, he said, then we're done. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. Matt, no, he cut me off. If you're not willing to make this right, then I don't want you at my wedding. I don't want you in my life. You and Daisy, you're not welcome. And just like that, he hung up. I stared at my phone, my mind spinning. Daisy walked into the room. What's wrong? I told her everything. As I spoke, anger replaced my initial shock. I had spent years hoping for this call, for some kind of reconciliation. But Matt hadn't come back for family. He had come back for a payday. Unbelievable, Daisy muttered. He disappears for 5 years, then demands money. And when you say no, he threatens to cut you off again? I ran a hand through my hair. Yeah, she exhaled, shaking her head. I hate to say it, but maybe it's time to let him go. I knew she was right, but it didn't make it hurt any less. A few days later, my parents called. They were as shocked as I was when I told them what Matt had said. He asked you for money? My dad repeated, disbelief in his voice. 50 grand, I confirmed. My mom sounded heartbroken. Oh, honey. They had tried over the years to reach out to him, just like I had. They had invited him to every holiday, every birthday. And just like me, they had been met with silence. We need to talk to him, my dad said, face to face. And so, a week later, we arranged a meeting. Me, Daisy, my parents, and Matt. It would be the first time we'd all been in the same room in 5 years. I didn't know what to expect. But part of me still held on to hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could fix this. Maybe he would see reason. Maybe he would finally let go of this twisted idea that I owed him something. But deep down, I knew better. And I was right. Because when we finally sat down, things only got worse. I'd spent days preparing myself for this meeting. I'd gone over every possible way it could play out. Maybe Matt would finally let go of his grudge. Maybe he'd double down. Maybe he just wanted closure. But no matter how many times I imagined it, I wasn't prepared for what actually happened. We met at a quiet restaurant. One, my parents chose to keep things neutral. Daisy sat beside me, her hand resting on mine, a silent source of strength. My parents sat across from us, tense but hopeful. And then Matt walked in. He looked the same but different. Older, harder, like the years had carved bitterness into his face. He barely spared me a glance as he sat down. "Matt," my mom started, her voice careful, as if one wrong word could shatter the fragile truce. "We've missed you." He nodded but didn't respond. His eyes locked onto me. "So, did you change your mind?" I felt my stomach tighten. Straight to business. No pleasantries, no real attempt at reconciliation. Just this absurd demand hanging over us. "No," I said firmly. "I didn't." His jaw clenched. "Then why am I here?" "Because we want to understand," my dad said. "We want to fix this," Matt scoffed. "Fix this?" "The only way to fix it is for him to take responsibility." He gestured at me like I was some kind of criminal. "You don't get it, do you? You destroyed my life. You stood there while she humiliated me in front of everyone. And you expect me to just move on like nothing happened?" My temper flared. "I expect you to put the blame where it belongs." "Kate did this, Matt, not me. You let it happen," he snapped. "You should have seen the signs, should have done something before it got that far." "I did," I shouted, startling the people at the nearby tables. "I told you she was acting weird. I warned you." He shook his head, laughing bitterly. "Yeah, and what did you do after that? You kept seeing her. You let her hang around you. You should have cut her off. You were engaged to her." I shot back. How the hell was I supposed to cut her off? She was part of the family, Matt. She was supposed to be my sister-in-law. He slammed his fist on the table. "And now you're married, happy, and I was left picking up the pieces of my life." My mom reached for his hand, her eyes pleading. "Matt, we all lost something that night, but we can't change the past. We can only move forward." He pulled away. "Not without that money." Silence fell over the table. My dad sighed, rubbing his temples. "Matt, you don't really believe he owes you money for this?" "I do," Matt said without hesitation. "It's not just about the humiliation. It's about the years I wasted on her. The money I spent, the future she took from me." I shook my head, barely able to believe what I was hearing. "Then go ask her for the money. She's the one who did this to you." His eyes darkened. "I can't." Daisy, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke. "Why not?" Matt hesitated for a second too long. My gut twisted. There was something he wasn't saying. My dad caught on too. "Matt," he said slowly, "is there something you're not telling us?" He exhaled sharply, looking away. "Kate's dead." The words hit like a brick to the chest. My mom gasped, covering her mouth. My dad stiffened. Daisy squeezed my hand. "And me?" I just stared at him, my mind struggling to process what I'd just heard. "What?" I finally managed. "She died last year," Matt said, his voice flat. "Car accident." I swallowed hard. As much as I had hated what she did, I wouldn't have wished that on her. I'm sorry," I said carefully. Matt shrugged. "Doesn't change anything." I frowned. "It kinda does, doesn't it?" He scoffed. "No, because she got to move on. She never had to face the consequences of what she did to me. She never had to sit with the mess she left behind. I did. I lost everything." I exhaled slowly, trying to keep my voice calm. "Matt, if you're struggling, if you need help, there are better ways than—" "I don't need help," he cut in. "I need you to make things right." I leaned back, running a hand through my hair. "And if I don't?" His expression hardened. "Then you're dead to me." My mom let out a small sob. "Matt, don't say that." But he just stood up. "I mean it. Either he pays, or we're done." Daisy stood up too. "That's not how family works, Matt." He glared at her. "Stay out of this." "No," she said firmly, "because I've stood by and watched you blame him for something that wasn't his fault. I've watched him try, over and over, to fix things with you. And I've watched you twist the past into something it wasn't, just so you don't have to admit that Kate played you. But she did, and you know it. For a second, I thought he might actually hit her." His fists clenched, his jaw tightened. But then he just exhaled sharply and shook his head. "Forget it," he muttered. "I don't know why I even bothered." Then he walked away. My mom sobbed quietly. My dad just looked exhausted. And me, I just felt empty. Daisy put her hand on my shoulder. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I nodded, but I couldn't find the words to respond. Matt was gone. Again. And this time, I knew he wasn't coming back. After that disastrous meeting, I told myself I was done. Done trying. Done hoping. Done pretending that Matt and I could ever be brothers again. But life has a funny way of dragging you back into the things you think you've escaped. A few weeks later, I got an email from an unknown address. The subject line was blank. The only thing inside was a single sentence. "You think this is over?" At first, I thought it was Matt. Maybe some twisted way of keeping his anger alive. But something felt off. The phrasing, the way it was sent anonymously, it didn't fit his style. Matt was blunt, direct. If he had something to say, he'd say it to my face. I ignored it. Then, another one came. "You don't know the whole story." I showed it to Daisy. "It has to be Matt, right?" She frowned. "Maybe. But why not just text you? He has your number." That was what was bothering me too. I decided to let it go. Blocked the email, moved on. Then, a week later, a package arrived at my doorstep. No return address. Just a small cardboard box, sealed tightly with packing tape. My heart pounded as I picked it up. Daisy stood beside me. "That's unsettling." I nodded. "Yeah." I grabbed a knife, sliced the tape open, and pulled back the flaps. Inside was a single item. A gold chain, with the letter K on it. My hands went ice cold. I hadn't seen that necklace in years. After Kate gave it to me, I had thrown it in a drawer somewhere and forgotten about it. But this wasn't just the same style. It was my necklace. The same one she had given me. Daisy sucked in a sharp breath. What the hell? I grabbed my phone and called Matt, straight to voicemail. I texted him. "Was this you?" No response. "Maybe it's someone messing with you," Daisy said, but even she didn't sound convinced. I stared at the necklace. There was no way Matt had this. The last time I had seen it, it was in my old apartment. The apartment I moved out of years ago. So how did it end up on my doorstep? I spent the next few days trying to rationalize it. Maybe Matt had somehow gotten hold of my stuff before he disappeared. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe I was overreacting. Then the emails started again. "She wasn't who you thought she was. You should have looked deeper. He's not the only one who lost everything." I felt like I was being watched. Like someone was waiting for me to put the pieces together. But pieces of what? Kate was dead. Matt had disappeared again. There was nothing left to figure out until I got the final message. An email with an attachment, a video file. I hesitated before opening it. Something in my gut told me that whatever was inside was going to change everything. I clicked play. At first, the footage was grainy, low quality security cam footage. A car speeding down a wet road, headlights cutting through the darkness. Then, suddenly, it swerved. Tires screeched. The car spun out of control and slammed into a tree. Smoke billowed from the hood. The driver's side door hung open. And then I saw her. Kate. She stumbled out of the car, clutching her head. Blood dripped down her temple. She looked disoriented, frantic. Then a second figure appeared. A man. He grabbed her by the arm. She struggled, trying to push him away, but he held tight. They exchanged words, but there was no audio. Then he shoved her. Hard. Kate fell backward. Her head hit the side of the car. She slumped to the ground. The man stood over her, motionless. And then, just like that, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the night. The video ended. My blood ran cold. Kate's death had always been reported as an accident, a car crash. But this was something else. This was murder. I sat frozen, staring at the screen. The man in the video had been wearing a hood, his face shadowed, but something about him was familiar. Daisy leaned over my shoulder, her face pale. That's not Matt, is it? I rewound the video, looked closer. The way he moved, the way he stood. Something about it nagged at me. Then it hit me. It wasn't Matt. It was someone else. Someone I hadn't thought about in years. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through old contacts until I found the name. Sarah. I hadn't spoken to her since we broke up. But suddenly, I needed to know something. I hit a call. It rang. Once. Twice. Then she answered. "Hello?" I took a breath. "Sarah, I need to ask you something. Back when we were together, you said Kate told you I was cheating on you, right?" A pause. "Yeah." "Did she ever tell you who I was supposedly cheating with?" Another pause. "She said it was a guy." My breath caught in my throat. "What?" "Yeah," Sarah said. "She said you had been sneaking around with some guy, but she wouldn't tell me who. I felt the ground shift beneath me. This wasn't just about Kate. This wasn't just about Matt. There was someone else, someone in the shadows, manipulating things long before any of us realized. And whoever they were, they had just made sure Kate never talked. I barely slept that night. My mind kept replaying the video over and over, dissecting every second, every shadow, every detail. Someone had been there when Kate died. Someone had been with her, had argued with her, had pushed her, and that someone was still out there. But why send the video to me? Why now? Daisy sat beside me on the couch, watching as I scrolled through old messages, trying to piece together anything I might have missed. "So, what do we do?" she asked. I exhaled. "We will find out who sent that video." I went back to the email, clicking on the details to see if there was any way to trace it. The sender was masked, a scrambled set of numbers that led nowhere. But attached to the video was a timestamp, 11:42 p.m., 2 nights ago. Someone had been holding on to this footage for years, and for some reason they chose now to send it. I tried calling Matt again. Voicemail. I texted him, "Call me. Now. It's important." Nothing. Daisy frowned. If Matt's not behind this, then who else would have access to this footage? Only one name came to mind. Kate's sister. I hadn't spoken to Lisa in years. The last time I saw her was at Kate's funeral. She had been distant, barely meeting my eyes, as if just looking at me reminded her too much of everything that had happened. We were never close, but she had always been the calmer, more level-headed one compared to Kate. If anyone had answers, it would be her. I found her number in my contacts, hesitated for only a second, and pressed dial. She answered on the second ring. "I was wondering when you'd call," she said. I froze. "So it was you." A pause. Then, "Meet me. Tomorrow. 3 p.m. I'll text you the address." Before I could say another word, she hung up. The next day, I drove an hour outside the city to a quiet little cafe on the outskirts of town. Lisa was already there, sitting in a booth by the window, a coffee in front of her. She looked different, older, tired. The years hadn't been kind to her. I slid into the seat across from her. "You sent me the video." She nodded. "Yeah. Why?" She stirred her coffee, eyes downcast. "Because you needed to see it." I leaned forward. "Who was he?" Lisa let out a slow breath. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Try me." She looked up, finally meeting my eyes. And when she spoke, her words sent a chill down my spine. "It was your brother." My stomach dropped. "That's not possible." Lisa gave a sad, knowing smile. "I thought you might say that." "No," I shook my head. "I know Matt. He couldn't. Watch the video again," she interrupted. "Really watch it." I pulled out my phone, opened the file, and pressed play. This time, I focused on the details. The way the man moved, the way he held himself, the slight hesitation before he pushed Kate. And then I saw it. The jacket, black, with a small tear near the left shoulder. A jacket I had seen 100 times before. Matt's jacket. "No," I whispered. This doesn't make sense." Lisa's voice was quiet. I didn't want to believe it either. I gripped the phone, my mind spinning. Why would he do this? Lisa's expression darkened. "Because Kate was going to tell you the truth." I stared at her. "What truth?" She exhaled, looking away for a long moment before finally saying, "That she wasn't the one who ruined your relationships. That she wasn't the one who pushed your girlfriends away." I frowned. "What are you talking about?" Lisa's voice was steady. It was Matt. A cold wave of realization washed over me. No, that's not." Kate admitted to it. Lisa shook her head. "Kate took the blame because Matt told her to. Because he needed you to think it was her." I felt like I was going to be sick. "Why?" Lisa's expression was unreadable. "Because Matt never hated Kate for loving you. He hated you for never noticing him." The words hit me like a freight train. "Matt was jealous? Of me?" Lisa continued. "He's been manipulating you for years, twisting things, making sure you'd always feel like Kate was the problem. Because as long as you were focused on her, you'd never look at him, never see what he was really doing." I tried to breathe, but it felt like my chest was caving in. "And Kate," she found out. "The night of her accident, she told me she was going to confront you. Tell you everything." Lisa's gaze was sharp, and Matt couldn't let that happen. I swallowed hard. "So She nodded. "They argued. She threatened to expose him. He lost control." I sat back, my hands shaking. My brother. The person I had spent years trying to mend things with. The person I had missed. He had been the one pulling the strings all along. "What do you want me to do with this?" I asked quietly. Lisa hesitated. That's up to you, but I thought you deserved the truth. I nodded slowly, staring at the phone. The proof was right there. And for the first time in my life, I saw Matt for who he really was. Not the victim, not the wounded brother, but the villain of my story. I drove home in a daze. Daisy was waiting for me when I walked through the door. One look at my face, and she knew something was wrong. "What happened?" she asked. I sat down heavily, running a hand over my face. "It was Matt." Daisy frowned. "What was it?" "Everything," I whispered. "It was always him." She sat beside me, waiting as I told her everything. The video, the truth about Kate, the years of manipulation. When I finished, she exhaled slowly. So what now? I didn't have an answer. Not yet. All I knew was that my brother had betrayed me in ways I couldn't even begin to comprehend. And for the first time, I realized I might not be able to forgive him. For days, I wrestled with what to do. The truth sat heavy in my chest, an unbearable weight pressing down on me. My own brother had spent years manipulating me, orchestrating the chaos in my life. And when Kate finally tried to expose him, he made sure she never got the chance. And the worst part? I had wasted years blaming the wrong person. Daisy kept checking in on me, but I barely spoke. I was stuck between two impossible choices: confront Matt and risk everything, or walk away and live with the knowledge that he had gotten away with it. I wasn't sure which option scared me more. Matt finally called me. It was late, just past midnight. I stared at the screen, his name glowing like some kind of taunt. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, letting him disappear forever, but I couldn't. Not anymore. I picked up. "You saw the video." It wasn't a question. I exhaled sharply. "Yeah." Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Then Matt let out a humorless laugh. "Guess you finally figured it out." My grip tightened on the phone. "Why?" Another pause. Then, with no emotion at all, he said, "Because you had everything." My heart pounded. "What the hell are you talking about?" Matt scoffed. "You were always the golden child. Mom and Dad adored you. Girls liked you. People listened to you. Me? I was just the guy standing in your shadow." "That's bullshit," I snapped. "I never tried to outshine you. You were my brother. I loved you." "Yeah?" he said bitterly. "Well, I hated you." The words hit me like a physical blow. Matt continued, voice cold. "Do you know how easy it was? All I had to do was plant little seeds of doubt. Make Kate believe she needs to keep you close. Make your girlfriends think she was the problem. Make you think she was the one sabotaging you." I clenched my jaw. "And Kate? She got too close to the truth," he admitted. "She was never supposed to figure it out. But then she did, and she was going to ruin everything. So you killed her." Matt didn't deny it. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that." My stomach churned. "Do Mom and Dad know what you did?" A bitter laugh. "Are you kidding? They still think you're the reason I cut them off." I rubbed my forehead, anger and grief battling inside me. "So why are you calling me now?" Silence. Then, almost casually, Matt said, "Because I need your help." I almost laughed. "You're insane." "You don't understand," he pressed. "Lisa has the original footage. She could take this to the cops." "She should take it to the cops," I snapped. "You really think that's going to fix anything?" he said sharply. "Think about what'll happen. Mom and Dad, this will destroy them. Do you really want to be the one to put me in prison?" I swallowed hard. "That's not on me, Matt. That's on you." Matt was silent for a long time. Then he said, "If you go to the cops, I'll tell them you helped me cover it up." My blood ran cold. "What?" "I'll say you knew," he continued. "That's why you never went to the police when Kate died. That you helped me destroy evidence." Rage boiled in my veins. "That's a lie. They won't know that," he said simply. "And who do you think they'll believe? The grieving brother who lost everything? Or the guy whose life conveniently got better after Kate was gone?" I gritted my teeth. "You really are a monster." Matt sighed. "This is why I called. I'm giving you a choice. Either you help me make sure Lisa keeps her mouth shut, or we both go down." I could barely breathe. He had me backed into a corner. No matter what I did, there would be consequences. But then I thought about Lisa, about Kate, about all the years I spent blaming the wrong person while Matt pulled the strings, and I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. The next morning, I met Lisa at her apartment. "I'm going to the police," I said. She studied me carefully. "Are you sure?" I nodded. "Matt called me last night. He threatened to frame me if I didn't help him." Lisa's expression hardened. "Then let's end this." I walked into the police station with the video file on a flash drive. It took hours, statements, paperwork, endless questions. I told them everything. By the time I left, I felt like I had aged 10 years. When I stepped outside, my phone rang. "Matt," I answered. "What did you do?" His voice was sharp, panicked. "I did what I should have done years ago," I said. "I told the truth." Silence. Then his voice dropped to a whisper. "You just destroyed our family." "No, Matt," I said. "You did." And then I hung up. The arrest happened 2 days later. I watched the footage on the news, saw Matt being led out of his apartment in handcuffs, his face blank. My parents called me, sobbing, demanding to know why I had done this. I told them the truth, but I knew they weren't ready to hear it. Maybe they never would be. Daisy wrapped her arms around me that night. "You did the right thing." I nodded, but the pain didn't go away. I had lost my brother, but maybe, in a way, I had lost him years ago. And now, finally, I could let him go.